Megatrends in the Waste Sector with two experts from Suez, which is a France-based company focused on water and waste management, headquartered in Paris. My name is Aditi Ramola, and I work at the International Solid Waste Association, or ISWA in short. ISWA is a global independent nonprofit association, and our mission is quite clear. We want to promote sustainable and professional waste management globally while also advocating a transition to a circular economy. And we completely understand that those might look different in different contexts. We have members from all around the globe, and these include individuals, organizations, companies, research institutes, and so on, and other associations, of course. And today we have with us two experts from Suez, and I'll be just moderating the discussion. We're going to be hearing about megatrends. And just to say that this week is important for us because the Climate COP, or the UNFCCC Conference of Parties, is underway in Belém in Brazil. And we've taken a very simple message out there just to say that the waste and resource sector is a greenhouse gas reducing sector. And when we design systems for prevention, organics management, recycling, and context-specific energy recovery, we can make a big difference. And on your slides, you can see that we've, before the COP took place, we had released our Waste Atlas and also our declaration for COP30. So I'm really honored to be moderating today's discussion, where we're going to discuss these mega trends with Luis and Marc Javier, who showcase the best of ISWA's global network, and they're also our partners for COP. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Luis de Poncheville, Director of International Development of Waste, as well as Marc Javier Joubert. He's the Corporate Strategy Officer. And the webinar is going to begin with a very short introduction to Suez, followed rapidly by a deep dive into the mega trends in the waste sector. So they're going to be covering 4 such trends, shaping investment and delivering on the ground solutions. And to keep this webinar quite interactive, we've decided to pause for a couple of audience questions after each mega trend is being discussed. So please keep dropping your questions into the chat as you go. And we can also, if it's a more general question, we'll park it for later. And so you have a message box which says Q&A, or even the message box is okay. And my colleagues and I will be keeping a lookout for your questions, and we will take them as they come along. So without further ado, I'm going to be passing on my mic to Luis to start with the introduction on what Suez does, and then we can get into the mega trends.
Thank you very much.
I'm stopping. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I will do the most difficult, which is to put my presentation on screen. Okay, you should have it now.
Yes.
So, my name is Louis de Poncheville. As you say, I'm Business Development Director for Suez in the International Division. I am very fortunate because I've been with Suez and in the waste industry for 30 years. So I'm very pleased to share with you today our experience. I will start by a short introduction of the Suez Group. Suez is a waste and water utility company. We are not an infrastructure fund. We are not a technology provider. I think what we want to do and what we do is to operate facilities. We've been present over 160 years, so for us it's quite important because it gives us the knowledge of various type of facility and how to run them all over the world. If I do a short focus on the waste sector within Suez, we are in every step of the value chain of the waste sector, from waste minimization, obviously, to collection, sorting, recycling, thermal treatment. So we have this knowledge of any situation that we can face in the waste industry. We treat 30 million tons of waste every year. And I think it's a significant figure. It means that since I joined the group 30 years ago, we have treated 1 billion tons of waste. And I think the group is very proud to gather all this experience. We produce energy, 7.5 terawatt of heat and electricity, but we are also in the circular economy because we produce 4 million tons of secondary material. It can be plastics, PET, PEBD, PEHD, whatever, metals, paper, cardboards, and tomorrow molecule. The consequence of all of that is we avoid 6 million tons of CO2 thanks to those different facilities. But I think the subject of today are the megatrends. And just an introduction before I leave the floor to Marc-Xavier. I think it's important for us that we all know the old world, the current world of the energy with the priority of safe treatment of the waste generated, whether it is municipal waste or industrial waste. But we can see now that this world is combining with other world, the world of energy, the world of materials, the world of molecule. And this is those two, this mega trends, a combination of two worlds that we want to explore with you today. And I will leave the first part of it to Marc-Xavier.
Thank you, Louis. So I'm Marc-Xavier Joubert, Corporate Strategy Officer for Suez. I joined Suez in 2008, so a bit younger than Louis. And I worked in both water and waste, operational environment, and a bit also of corporate on the risk and now on the strategy. What I would like to start with is about this landfill diversion. So of course, this mega trend is very global, and it's like already open doors to speak about that. It's a matter of sanitation, of land use, of preservation of the resource, but we see that it concerns every region in the world. We see landfill diversion policies, of course, in Europe, it's still ongoing, but also in China, in India, in the Middle East, and actually all over the world. However, it's one thing to have the willingness to divert from landfill. It's another thing to implement solutions that are viable. And to do that, there are some conditions. Let's take a first example, which, for instance, is increasing the material recovery. The more material I'm able to recover, the less I will put to landfill. However, to do that, that requires that downstream, locally, there are industries seeking for these secondary raw materials and ready to pay the cost of the separate collection, the sorting, and the preparation to reach the desired standard. For some materials like metals, it's quite easy. For some other, it looks like there is a mic issue. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. It looks like for some there is some mic problem. Okay. So yes, what I was saying is that increasing material recovery could be a good target, but to do that, to implement that solution, you need an industry downstream that is able, that wants that material, and that is able to pay for the cost of collecting and preparing the feedstock. But this question of affordability and downstream willingness to get the solution is also true for the energy from waste. It's hard to develop an energy from waste if there is not a demand for energy made from waste. And this energy must be at a price which is locally affordable. What we see through these two examples is that designing waste treatment solutions is actually not only thinking upstream about the waste that I have to handle, but it's also thinking about downstream. And what I mean by thinking downstream. First, asking the question, what is the downstream demand for waste-based solutions? It can be power, it can be heat, it can be material, it can be molecules, but what is the demand downstream? Then the second question is, what is the merit order of that waste-based solution versus other alternative for the off-taker, for the potential off-taker? And let's take the example of the energy. If downstream there is a demand for power, what is the merit order of a waste-based power generation versus other solution that the community could have? It can be compared to solar, compared to gas power generation. And then the third question is, does the price cover the cost to go from the waste to the solution for downstream? And what we understand through that questions is that bridging the gap between complex waste stream, because we are talking about waste like it was a simple reality, but all here around the table, you know that waste is actually very complex. So it's about bridging the gap between this complex waste stream on one hand to be managed, and on the other hand, a wide range of downstream demand for waste-based solutions, and that requires a deep understanding of the value chain and all the ecosystem to build the relevant solution and the relevant system. And then what we understand, it's not anymore about thinking about one single client having waste to be handled, but also building the solution with the downstream clients. And this change in the paradigm of waste management is going even stronger today with the rise of the low carbon fuel with projects that are seeking for waste feedstock. And to give an example, that's what we are doing as part of the Global Impact Coalition. So Suez joined last year the Global Impact Coalition, which is a spin-off from the World Economic Forum, and which is gathering leaders from the petrochemical industry, such as LyondellBasell, Covestro, Moeve, Edgechem, Clariant, to develop tangible industrial projects. And what I can see around all the projects we are working on to decarbonize the petrochemical industry is that most of the solutions we are working on are waste-based. So, as a conclusion of that mega trend, what we can see is that the projects are going more and more complex and actually driven by decarbonization agenda. So maybe we can take a few questions or remark on that mega trend.
Thanks, Louis. And Mark, I don't see any questions as of now.
So maybe we can carry on.
So we carry on.
There's one question in the Q&A box, Aditi.
If
this is something related for you.
So I just don't know how we can see the question actually.
Okay, wait, I'll just copy paste it on the chat box. Give me a second. You can see the chat, right? So this is a question that Karthik is asking.
So, okay. So there was a question on the CO2 avoided. At what
Maybe
level
that's
is
the
Suez
next.
able... So I see the question. So at what level is Suez able to access carbon finance, and what are the major challenges and learnings from which the global source can learn and follow on low CO2 pathway? So it's hard to say to what level. We have some projects for which we are able to access to carbon finance. I'm thinking particularly when we develop green landfill, where thanks to the so we are still around landfill. It's just another way to carry on landfill, and where we develop solutions to maximize the capture of the biogas, and thanks to all the avoided emission, we are able to generate carbon credit and also to access to carbon finance. More globally, what we also do to finance our growth is to put some green bond on the market, so that we have investors seeking for decarbonization solution that we can propose. And this finance is targeted on the project that meet the scheme around decarbonization. I hope this answered the question. It's a good question to move to the next trend, because the next trend is about managing different priorities on CO2. So what I was explaining previously is that the change of paradigm in waste management is actually more and more driven by the decarbonization agenda. Not saying that it's not anymore a question of sanitation, but sanitation is taken for granted now. It's like not anymore a question. Which is more and more a question is the driver of decarbonization. And when we speak about decarbonization agenda, first, of course, we think about reducing the emission of the waste management itself. So talking about landfill, that's first about covering landfill and maximizing biogas extraction to avoid the emission in the atmosphere of this of the methane. Second option, we think when we talk about decarbonizing waste management, if we are on energy from waste, it's about developing carbon capture on energy from waste to capture the fossil part of the CO2 which is emitted by incineration. On the other hand, we should bear in mind that waste-based solution can also directly contribute to the decarbonization of other industries. And many options can be actually developed. Of course, by producing decarbonized energy. So that's what we do with energy from waste. Then it depends a little bit on the local context. If we are in a country where most of the power is produced due to coal power plant, then energy from waste will really participate and contribute to the decarbonization of the power production. We can also have biogas to power thanks to engine or turbine. We can, thanks to the production of biomethane, whether from landfill or from bio-waste methanization, we can inject this biomethane into the grid to replace the natural gas. Or we can also deploy renewable energy solutions on waste assets to maximize the use of the land, such as the photovoltaic panel that could be deployed on closed landfill. But when we move further, we see that thanks to waste, we can also actually maximize the recovery and the use of the carbon which is in the waste. So we were talking about capturing the CO2 from energy from waste to reduce the carbon footprint, but we can also capture particularly the biogenic CO2 of this energy from waste to feed greenhouse for agriculture, or to feed the production of synthetic fuel or e-fuels. I'm sure that most of you have hear about the decarbonization agenda of the maritime transportation or of the aviation. These two sectors, they are looking for e-SAF or e-methanol, for example, or e-methane to participate to the decarbonization of their own industries. But this question of maximizing the recovery of the carbon which is contained into the waste can also be addressed by producing molecules directly from the waste. I'm not talking about methanization that most of you already know. I'm talking about, for example, pyrogasification of the solid waste to produce directly standard molecules such as methanol, ethanol, or sustainable aviation fuel. And what is interesting in those waste-based solutions It's not only the fact that we are concretely, I would say, putting in place circular solution, but also because these solutions are providing a certain stability in terms of quantity and price, which is quite interesting locally. Why? Because waste can offer a kind of base load solution, which is predictable in a way for the industry and the communities. Compared to natural gas or petrol, waste is clearly less exposed and not directly exposed to the volatility of those markets, which even if in some cases it can be more expensive, it gives visibility and stability. And so, as a conclusion of these two slides, what we see is that developing a waste infrastructure, it's actually about connecting dots between a wide range of feedstock that we call waste, and then a wide range of potential needs for waste-based solution. All that being crafted in a tailored way with the relevant technology and logistic bricks to build solutions that fit with the local needs and constraints. And all that, it's making waste projects more and more complex. And to do that, we need professionals to build the solutions.
Thank you, Marc-Xavier. I don't know if we move to the next part or if we take questions at this stage.
Luis, perhaps we can just move along. I do see some questions coming in the Q&A, and I'll gather them till the end.
Perfect. Let's do that. Okay. So we saw with Marc-Xavier that we started the waste world alone, and then now we are moving and combining two worlds, the worlds of the waste and the world of energy, of molecule, of industry. I think another trend which is very significant is that those projects, the new projects, are delivered under project finance context. So without going in a lot of detail, but when we speak about project finance, we are speaking about projects where the equity partner, investor, and commercial bank mostly will take the risk on the performance of the project, backed by several parties. Why is that happening? I think municipalities, government, they've got their own financial priorities, and they are expecting the developer of the project to bring the financing to develop the infrastructure. If I take a Suez case, I think 80 or 90% of the project we are developing will be developed under design, build, operate, and finance. So not only we have to think about the technical solution or the operation, but we need to structure the financing. And this brings some complexity to those projects. Why? We've seen with Marc-Xavier that more and more the downstream revenue, so the value of the heat, the value of the electricity, the value of the metals, the value of the molecule, is paying a very large part of the value chain of the solution. If I make it simple, 10, 20 years ago, 80% of the revenue in a given waste project was coming from the municipality paying a gate fee. If you take waste to SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel, you might have 80, 90% of the revenue that will come from the off-taker. So we can see the importance of the quality of the off-take and the fact that you have to deliver for the whole duration of the project as it was expected in the best case. If you expect the plant to run 8,000 hours a year, you need to deliver those 8,000 hours for 25 years. Why? Because if at one moment in time you do not deliver your obligation, then the off-taker will not be able to take the electricity, to take the heat, and will ask for a compensation. And from a bank point of view, a lender point of view, an equity partner point of view, the last thing he wants is not to recover the revenue he was supposed to get in order to repay the debt. So we can see here that we have two key parties in those projects. You have the operator that will have what we call a put or pay obligation. So he will have to put the energy, to put the metal, to put the molecule in the end of the off-taker. And you have another key obligation, which is a take or pay obligation of the off-taker. Everything has to be done during those 20, 25 years to deliver those performance. How do we do that? I think the first thing is to put a lot of emphasis in the know-how. How do we run those facilities? What experience do we have on how many plants have we been able to secure the performance on those operations? So first thing in those projects, you need to have a very reliable operator that after the takeover of the plant will deliver the same performance for the next 25 years. In order to do so, you need to invest in digital solution. How do you manage centrally a fleet of 10, 20, 30, 40 facilities so you can detect very quickly when things are going out of hands and you are not delivering the performance? In terms of innovation, if I take an example, you need to introduce artificial intelligence in order to spot the non-quality, the non-contract waste, the hazardous waste, which is entering your facility and might detract the performance of the operation. The byproduct traceability, if you are supposed to deliver, as Marc Xavier said, renewable fuel, non-fossil fuel, biogenic fuel, you need to be sure that the waste that has been delivered within your facility is really non-biogenic waste. So we can see under this context of project finance that operations are now very, very important and are one of the key elements from an equity and investor point of view, a bank point of view, that will allow the project to be delivered. If I take that in another word, we all know some complex projects that has never been delivered. They've never been able to reach financial close or final investment decision. And usually it is because there is not an unbalanced situation between the technical part of the project, the operational part of the project, and the off-take. And what is important is to have teams that are able to guarantee to the client and the lenders and the equity partners that you can deliver over the long time with a various and committed off-taker. So this is a real trend, and it has not to be underestimated. If you start a project, make sure that you understand in which financial context you will deliver that, and from the beginning, anticipate what type of obligation everybody will have to deliver. The last trend maybe we can discuss is the following. Not only you have to combine the world of waste and the world of energy, you have to combine those two worlds with project finance, but also what is very important is you will have a lot of players coming from very different horizons playing to deliver the project. What does it mean? 20 years ago, we used to have European technology provider working on projects in Europe with waste sponsor and local authorities. In the meantime, we had in Japan or in China or in India, local technology provider working on their technology and implementing their technology with their regulation in China, in Japan, in Southeast Asia. This was the situation 10, 20 years ago. Now we are all sure that those new waste facilities must be deployed in Africa, in Middle East, in Australia, in Latin America. And the technology will come from Europe, but the technology will also come from Asia, from India, from Japan. Why? Because we need to be very efficient in terms of technology, and we need to be very competitive in terms of technology, of cost. So we must combine European techno provider with Indian, Japanese, Chinese techno provider. And we need to bring them, and this is what it is new, we need to bring them in new territories. We need to bring them in the Middle East, we need to bring them in Australia, we need to bring them in Africa, in countries where the waste is very different. We all know that the waste in Australia is not the same as the waste in India, which is not the same as the waste in Middle East and Africa. And you need every waste project, especially if the offtake is very important, every waste project starts by a very deep understanding on the waste composition. You need to know the local regulation. In an energy from waste, one of the key regulations is obviously air emission. But air emission now, they are more or less a copy and paste of the EU regulation. But you have other construction, electricity regulation, pressure vessel. What is the regulation of pressure vessel in a given country, in Morocco, in Tunisia, in Egypt? Obviously, it is not the same as the one in China, in Australia, in Middle East. So my point here is to say that you need to bring together a team coming from various horizons that is going to work in a country that do not usually know this country. So you need to have a sponsor, a developer that can bring new technology in new territories and make sure it is not a simple copy and paste of something that has been developed in other geography, but it is really something that is developed with a local partner. And with the developer and the local partner, you will be able to adapt this technical solution and to adapt the operation to the waste, to the regulation, to the ecosystem at the end of the day of this country. So we can see that this challenge of bringing complex technology, because if you want to produce aviation fuel, you will have preparation of the waste, you will have gasification of the waste, you will have gas to molecule brick. So we have more and more complex projects going in further new territories under a project finance context, and to combine the world of the waste and the world of the energy and the world of the industry. So for us, it is quite challenging. What are the takeaways? Because we should not be lost in all those mega trends. We need to have a clear direction. I think from us, the takeaway, we have three takeaways. The first is waste is a priority for every geography, and it has to stay as a key priority to treat the waste in the safe environment. We should not leave everything that you guys have been developing for the last 5-10 years in order to jump to a new solution that will be a miracle. No, we need to focus on delivering a safe environment, and this is usually the key priority. And within the Suez Group, we still have, of course, a lot of resources dedicated to traditional solutions that works. You know, a landfill with pre-sorting, incineration, composting, and we combine them with new solutions. But it's not one solution will fit everybody. So keep a strong focus on a safe environment regarding waste solution. The second takeaway is whatever will be the solution, operation is a cornerstone of the solution. If you do not have a strong and a reliable operation, a performant operation, you will not be able to develop a more complex solution. The first brick is always operation. And this is why we invest a lot in new technology, innovative solution to make sure that we reinforce this cornerstone, which is performance of operation. The third takeaway for us is you need to have within your team people looking at other worlds apart from the waste sector, the world of biomethane. When you look at the complexity of anaerobic digestion solution, the market of the biomethane, what is the value of the biomethane depending on the carbon intensity of the biomethane, how to structure a biomethane purchase agreement with industrial company. So I think the third takeaway for us is we need to invest in people working within the waste industry, but being able to create a bridge with other world of the CO2, world of the energy, world of the molecule. And that is very important because without those people, you will have to stay in your own world of the waste. So three takeaway, safe treatment of waste, focus on operation, and investing in capacities in order to close a bridge between waste, energy, project finance, and EPC, techno provider, and bring all of that together. I think that for us, the key takeaway of this megatrend in the waste sector. So maybe now we can open the discussion.
And I will take the first question, and I think it's really nice that you mentioned the first takeaway about safely ending waste. So maybe I was not clear when I say that sanitation is not questioned anymore. It's more to say that, not to say that the objectives are met today on sanitation. It's more to say that sanitation as an objective of sludge treatment is not discussed anymore. And what we see now is that more and more beyond this objective of sanitation, we see objective of decarbonization of industry. And that's where we see a way, and maybe making the link with another question is how to move from intention to action. What I see is that the decarbonization agenda of many industry is providing an additional lever to implement solution that will safely handle the waste. So I hope this answers the question. And to react also on your point on the skills, it's clear that when it comes to developing waste to molecule, whether it's methane, methanol, kerosene, or things like that from waste, you really need new skills on carbon intensity calculation. And really, we will see that there is no solution that fits for all, because a same project developed in Europe or developed in the Middle East or developed in Asia will not have the same carbon intensity calculation at the end of the day, because you will compare different things. You will compare the situation with a reference, and the reference is different from one country to another. The feedstock is different from one country to another, and all that small differences can make a big difference at the end of the day on the carbon intensity of the molecule or of the solution you're trying to develop.
I can see a question about preferred technology. Okay. We are not techno provider within the Suez Group in the waste sector, meaning that we are not more focused in methanization compared to incineration and anaerobic digestion. So what is important is to understand the client expectation and the market expectation. I will take an example. In Eastern Europe, most of the city have heat provided by a district heating network. And this district heating network used to run on coal. Coal now is very bad for the environment because of CO2 and is very complex to obtain because it used to come from Russia and it's quite complicated. If you have a city in Eastern Europe with 70% of the population require heat from district heating network, the most obvious technology, the most adapted technology will be incineration, because it will allow you to have a very secure source of energy, because waste will be there. So you can build an incineration, have the waste, transform the waste in heat with a little bit of electricity, and decarbonize the district heating network. In other geography, incineration might not be the solution. You know, we spoke about Latin America, about Africa. In Africa, there is, I don't know, 300 million tons of waste generated every year, because we are speaking about 1 billion people. 300 million, we are not saying at all that let's build an energy from waste plant in every large city of Africa, because you will not be able to do it. It will take years, and it's better to have a phased approach, to have a very successful landfill with pre-treatment. Then 10, 15 years later, you can move to a solution. So I think to answer the question, every technology is adapted to the local context. And one of the mistakes, from my point of view, is to say, okay, I will move every 2 years, change my mind, and go to the latest technology. Because it's not the technology that will answer all your questions. I hope it's clear.
Maybe I will take the other question related to one of the key drivers of circular economy is EPR. How Suez is promoting EPR, especially in countries with strong informal sector. So maybe to everybody, when we talk about EPR, it's extended producer responsibility, which in a way is a good principle to say, if you put on the market a product, you should be also responsible of the fact that we will have to manage the waste that will be generated by that product at the end of its life. So the principle is good, and Suez is globally promoting this principle. Then, is it one solution that fits for all? I would say no. And once this principle is put as a sentence, then there's many ways to implement this principle. One principle is that you will collect a tax for each good that is sold on the market, and with the money you take from this tax, you will organize a dedicated or a specific waste collection and treatment system. But then I would say some elements we should take into account. First, that if you implement an EPR system, you should ask yourself, is it relevant to implement a dedicated EPR system for the product or for the family of products? Or is it worth to finance the existing waste management system so that it can improve a little bit the performance? Let's take an example that I know quite well, which is the case in France, the EPR system on packaging. At the beginning, it's taking a bit of money on each packaging put on the market, and this money is collected so that you can finance municipalities to invest into sorting plant, to support the collection, the separate collection of the packaging, and to support more the municipalities that are reaching a better performance compared to others. So that's a good principle. You can have other EPR system that will be dedicated to one single stream. So for example, there are some countries where you have an EPR system on tires specifically, because the way this industry is organized make it possible to easily organize the collection of the waste of the tires at the end of their life, because it's very close. When you buy a new tires, it's generally you will generally have the whole one, so you can bring the old one to get the new ones to the same people. So that's an easy way to organize that. But in some other situation, it can be harder to put that in place if you want to implement, for example, the collection of industrial packaging, because that will be very disseminated into the country. So it could be harder to implement an EPR system. Second element that you have to take into account is how you organize that. When I say how you organize that is, do you build a dedicated body that will operationally organize the collection and the treatment of the waste? Or will you let the existing actor do the job, but just help them to do it? And so there is no one solution for everybody, but at least we have a lot of feedback and learnings to help implement those sectors. Then when it comes to informal sector, I would say, let's not destroy something that is working. So if we have an informal sector that is already pretty performant in catching, for example, metals or cardboard, maybe we should not destroy that, because if we want to increase the performance, then we should do it by involving the people that are already working on the circularity of the waste. So I hope this answers to the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. This is very easy for me. Since you're reading all the questions already, I'm going to type in some more that I have received as well.
Yeah.
I see a question on how strong is resource recovery as a driver for waste management, and what material streams are now getting importance, making them a driver. I think that's what I was trying to say at the beginning of my intervention. The resource recovery driver is not strong by design. It depends really from one stream to another. And actually, it exists only if downstream you have an economy. Let's take an example, a country in the Middle East. If you don't have a paper production or a cardboard production locally, that means that if you collect paper or cardboard, you will need to send it to another country where you would have this paper or cardboard industry. Just say, for example, India. Then you will have the cost of the logistic to send those paper and cardboard collected in the country to send it to another country. And then the question, is the cost paid by the price of the cardboard? And sometimes it's not the case. So by design, resource recovery can be a driver if and only if there is a possibility locally to take that stream and transform it into a new value. And if we make the link with the informal sectors, what we see in the informal sectors is that, I would say, the easy and valuable feedstock are collected. So metals, cardboard, they are collected generally. Which is harder is the plastic, because the plastic, some of the plastic could be easy to recycle. So some of the PET bottles, for example, if they are clean, but the mix PEBD, LDPE, LDPE mixed with some organic waste, then it's very hard to recycle. So even if you have a demand for recycled plastic, it will be hard to compete with the virgin, with the price of virgin plastic. And that's the other element of the driver. In some cases, the price of the secondary raw material is cheaper than the virgin one. That's the case with the metals. But for the plastic, generally speaking, to reach the quality you need to reintegrate that feedstock into the industrial process, generally speaking, the cost is higher than the virgin one. The price is higher than for the virgin. So then it's very hard to compete with the virgin molecule. But the regulation is pushing recycling more and more. So then it will be a question of market, of supply and demand. I would say today the supply of plastic, of recycled plastic is higher than the demand. So the driver is not very strong. But we consider that in 10 to 20 years, the demand for recycled plastic will be much higher, and maybe the supply not so easy to provide. So it could create a balance in the supply and demand that could support the resource recovery of plastic.
But this is, I think I take it from there. I think it's important because the question we are asking it is, who is driving the pace for this resource recovery material? Are we expecting the politician people to do it, or are we expecting the consumer to do it? Am I ready to pay a little bit more for my plastic recycled bottle, or do I want to pay the same price for a plastic recycled bottle? And I think this is a key question. If you are not ready to pay a little bit more to use secondary material, it's going to be complicated to compete with virgin plastics. So I think it's not a discussion between lawmakers and the plastic industry. It's a discussion which is a discussion at the COP level, I will say, to make sure that we create the drivers and the enablers to create this circular economy.
And maybe to make the link of this question of, because behind the question, it's the question of what is the price of sustainability. And to make the link with the sanitation question, I think that 50 years ago, it was okay to put wastewater directly in the river without treatment. It was okay to put waste in a hole, in a valley, so that it's not anymore in the city. And in many countries, not everywhere, but now I would say the consensus is to say, no, we should pay, collect the waste, to collect the wastewater, to treat the waste, to treat the wastewater in a healthy way that provides sanitation for the communities. I think that for the CO2, we are moving, maybe not fast enough, but we are moving also, and we will consider that it's not anymore acceptable to extract oil to produce plastic if we already have plastic available somewhere in a waste status. That will change, and that the consequence will be that for some reason it will be more expensive for some product. However, I would like to say the price of plastic in a product that you buy is not so huge. So even buying a plastic which could be twice more expensive will not have a huge impact on the final product. So I think that's part of the question will be, okay, to what extent I accept to pay a little bit more just to be sustainable, and so that our kids or the kids of their kids will live in a safe planet.
Maybe another, I don't know if there are other questions.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
Okay,
Lots of questions.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Which one should we pick?
Go from bottom up, whichever you feel like.
I see one question on how do you view the headwinds in plastic waste recycling in Europe, and what prospect does it have in the context of the message on downstream business case validity? I think that's not changing when we talk about headwinds, is I am not sure it's plastic waste the problem. The problem is the situation of the chemistry industry in Europe in general, and the competition with the plastics coming from China. We see that China has overcapacity of production. So is able to propose on the market a very low price for virgin materials. And for the European production, it's hard to find an economic viability in buying plastic secondary raw materials, so coming from plastic recycling, to incorporate them in their product, and to have, in a way, a kind of sovereign European preference for European project. Because when it comes to plastic recycling, to any, I would say, material recovery, we talk about something which, as far as possible, must be local. It's about reusing at a local level. Then the question is, what is the size of this local? Is it the region? Is it the country? Is it the continent? But this is the question. So it show, I would say, it validates actually the business case. It validates the fact that if the downstream demand is weak, or if the downstream off-takers have different solutions on the market to meet their objective, they will not take your solution. So it validates the concept.
Okay. I will take the question of David, which is, I think, a very relevant question. And I've been working 10 years in Africa, Latin America. So it's important that we take the need of everybody. I think your question is there two worlds? One world of country which have not yet met the basic need of waste collection and waste treatment, and another world of country going being a little bit ahead. Yes and no. It is true that, for instance, in EU with a 2035 regulation of less than 10% recycling, more than 65% recovery and recycling, 10% landfill, sorry. It is true that the regulation and the cost of living is obviously not the same within country. Regarding Africa, Latin America, and some countries in Southeast Asia, we strongly believe that a well-managed landfill with some pre-sorting is the right solution as a first step of evolution. A city of 3 million people will produce, let's say, 1 million tons of waste. 1 million tons of waste is a cost of 15 to 20 million euros per year. And we need to ask ourselves how a municipality can afford to spend 15 to 20 million euro or dollars on waste in years on safe treatment of waste. I think one of the first answers is developing basic solution is obviously more expensive than doing nothing, but there is a payback. If you look at the economic literature of what is the cost of mismanagement of waste, I think out of my head, in the study we did internally with Suez, is 0.8% of your GDP. You lose 0.8% of your GDP not treating your waste properly. So there is a payback, an important payback of doing properly waste management. And we can see countries that have moved to, I think it's linked to another question that I saw in the questions is how to move from intention to operation. And I think the first advice, or maybe the only advice, is to do properly an assessment of the context and go for a deliverable solution adapted to the local context. If I have no need for molecule, no need for energy, no need for recycling, I just try to implement something that works. I focus on operation and I will improve the situation. Then 5 years later, I can introduce, I've seen in Nigeria, in Ivory Coast, in Senegal, some nice small plastic recycling operation. So I introduce a small plastic operation. Then 5 years later, I can move to a small composting or methanization of waste. So I will not try to do everything at the same time. I will try to focus on delivering a solution step by step by introducing more and more landfill diversion. But you always need to start somewhere.
Thank you, Luis.
And I think we don't have time anymore.
Yeah, we're at the end.
I see
Should
many other
have
questions
should
I would
have
like to
had a
answer
much
to.
longer. Exactly. There's so many questions that people have sent in. What I'll do is I'll collect them all, and we will come together again and share this when we share the presentation. But I would take this opportunity to thank everybody who joined us today.
Thank you very
This
much.
has been a really interactive session. And as the COP is ongoing in Belém, we absolutely take the message from the sector to embed all the priority messages that we've got, to embed them in the NDCs, to actually start bankable projects so that we can move from plans to action and real emissions reductions, as some of the people have commented here. So I thank you all for joining us. And if you want to know more about what ISWA does and the activities, please join our mailing list. This is one of the series webinars that we had. The next one's going to be on the 18th. So please do join us for that as well. And you can get in touch with our membership manager, Rachwi, on our website. Thank you so much. And most importantly, I would like to thank Luis and Mark for this amazing presentation and discussion session. We should have had a longer time today. Thank you so
We'll
much.
do it longer. Thank you very much, Aditi. Thank you, everybody, and speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.